Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, today we are talking traps in Dicey Depths. Alright folks, let's kick this thing off with a brief introduction. This is Carl the Careful. Now, Carl has generously volunteered to take us on a tour through all of the new and old traps that you may find in Dicey Depths. I created a couple new decks. I may do a video on those as well. These are passageway layout cards, room layout cards, and we've already seen the different kinds of room themed cards. Here's our new revised traps deck, and we will be laying out all of the traps as Carl the Careful, takes us on this tour. All right, so also, just briefly, because the traps are going to require some resolution, we did roll up some quick stats for Carl. He is a level 0 warrior with those stats there, and that is important. We're obviously not going to be doing any combat or anything here, but a lot of these trap roll to resolve situations are going to require him to have some basic stats. Oh, Carl, my gosh. My thoughts and prayers are with you because I don't know if he's even going to make it to the last trap without keeling over, but let's find out. All right, Carl is currently first in the entrance room. So the dungeon has some descending stairs down into it. He has 3 different ways he can go. Carl, which way do you want to go? Carl wants to go to the right. So we're going this way. I'm not going to do this for all of them, but we will see what kind of passageway this ends up being. It is just a bare bones basic straight passageway. Good enough! We can absolutely snag one of those and effortlessly connect it to our dungeon. Now it is time for Carl to find out what awaits him. Now, normally you would roll to find out if you discovered the trap, if you disarmed the trap, but in this case we're just going to assume Carl the Careful was a little more clumsy than careful, and so he did spring a trap. What is the first trap he's going to demonstrate for us? It is the arrow wall. The whistling of arrows breaks the unsettling silence of the corridor. So this is going to require a 3-speed test. So 3 speed tests, 3d6. Each failure, which means the roll was equal to or higher than the adventurer's speed attribute, results in 1 wound. So he has to try to roll below his speed attribute in order to pass this test. So what does the arrow trap look like? Well, in this instance, we have a pair of these. These are actually old Dwarven Forge pieces from their old resin line. And I tend to do it either way. You could either stick them within the passage, or you could put them on the outside. And sometimes I do that just so that you can get some figures inside. But you can imagine the arrow slits on either of those shooting through as Carl tries to make his way down the corridor. All right, so here we go. We're going to roll this in real time. So as we saw, Carl actually has a decent speed attribute. Okay, well that didn't do anything. He has a speed attribute of 4. He's going to be rolling 3d6. Imagine these being arrows firing at him as he traverses this passageway. So he needs to get a 3 or less on each of these die. Each die that he fails to do that on is a wound. All right, so Carl has taken his first wound. Oh, I'm sorry, you probably can't even see that. So he rolled a 1 and a 2, which is fantastic. That's obviously 3 or less. But the 4, that equals his speed value. That is a failure. Carl has taken his first wound. I'm just going to note that on his stat sheet with a die. All right, Carl has traversed the very first passageway trap, the arrow wall. Let's speed things up and get moving on to the next. All right, and we are ready for the next passageway. Carl made his way through just a nondescript room. And again, I'm not going to really pay much attention to the room cards and stuff right now. But there was nothing of note in this room, let's just say. However, here we go. We're drawing the next passageway card. It is a corner passage. So the way this will work, to determine the orientation of this passageway, we're going to roll a d6. Let me grab one so that we can get this on display here. We should have 2 of them here. All right, here we go. Here's one of them. So whenever you need to determine room or passageway orientation, the way that works is in the position where the leftmost door or passageway is connected to the door you're entering from, 1, 2, or 3, it'll stay that way. 4, 5, or 6, it'll turn the other way. So let's find out. It is a 2, so it is going to stay that way. So Carl is now entering this passageway, and it is headed right for us here. And let's find out. Again, he triggered the trap. All right, Carl, here we go. What fate awaits you this time? It is bear traps. All right. Only a complete bumbling idiot would step on one of the... Ouch! Osmond the Overconfident. So this is also going to be a speed test. Roll a number of d6 equal to your speed attribute. Only 1 success is needed to pass. So this is a very simple, pretty much easy, basic little trap here. And the reason for that is kind of like how Osmond the Overconfident was alluding to. These are pretty obvious. They're not very well hidden. They should be easy enough to avoid. However, you do have to have some dexterity about you. I believe, and so here we have our little bear traps. I believe Carl the Careful is actually going to be able to traverse these bear traps fairly easily because Carl has a speed attribute of 4. So he gets to roll 4 dice here, and he only needs a 3 or less on one of them. And that is all he got. Okay, so Carl the Careful did make his way through the bear traps without any issue, though it was very close. He exceeded his speed attribute on 3 of the 4 dice. All right, so that is that. Carl has made his way past the second trap effortlessly. Let's find out if he can navigate the third just as easily. All right, Carl's not having the best navigating luck. As you can see, we are actually back to the entrance because he found himself in just a dead-end room, and it also had nothing inside of it. And then, so he headed back to the entrance and went to the left, and it ended up being a dead-end passage. So there's only one way left to go, and of course it was lit by the torch sconces, so this should be the way to go. What do we have? It is not going to be a dead-end passage. That is one of the rules of the room and passage decks, is if you are left to one single way to go, and you draw one of these, you shuffle this back into the passageway deck, and draw a new one. What do we have? There we go. That's more like it. We have another straight ahead passage there. And Carl the Careful is about to demonstrate our third trap. And it is swinging blades. Ooh, those will carve up a hog real nice from Chef Gordon Hamsey. 10 attempts to roll 2 6s. All right. If he fails, though, this is another 2 wounds for Carl the Careful. So here are a couple of swinging blades. These scythe blades. He's going to try to navigate through these. Let's see if he can do that safely. So again, 10 attempts to roll 2 6s. Now, you can kind of debate amongst yourselves whether that should be a single die 10 times, which honestly I prefer because it kind of builds up the tension. But we're just, in the sake of time, going to just roll 10d6 and find out if we roll 2 6s. And we rolled a single 6, which means the swinging blades caught Carl, and he has now taken another 2 wounds. Carl the Careful is now up to 3 wounds. He has a health point of 9, so he has lost a third of his life. Let's see if he can actually make it. We have a lot more traps to go, though, so let's see what's next. All right, and Carl has entered the next room. It ended up being a 3-way room. This was the orientation of it. Still no themes. We got a third nondescript room in a row, which is pretty crazy. So we are going to just go straight ahead, I think. Carl wants to venture on in that direction, and the passageway ends up being another straight passage. All right, fantastic. We will throw one of those on there. And then find out what trap number 4 has in store for Carl. It is slime trap. No, I just bought these boots. So this is there's no roll necessary here. It is just a straight up status effect. The natural initiative bonus of all heroes and companions is 0 for the entire next combat. So let's get out the slime trap. And I'm actually very proud of this. Here is the slime trap. You can see this poor guy. He's stepped right into the sludge. He's trying to wade his way through there. Oh my gosh. All right. So now Carl, unfortunately, also has to wade his way through the slime and move on to the next door. Thank you, Carl. So Carl would be entering the next room, engaging in a combat where his initiative bonus, which was a +3, is now a +0 for the entire next combat. All right, let's find out what the next trap is. I swear I shuffled the room theme deck, but we got a 4th nondescript room in a row. Corner room, this orientation. Carl then is headed that way. The passageway this time is another straight passage. Most of these are going to be straight passages. There are a couple corners, a couple intersections. And as we saw, some dead ends. And it could very well have been a dead end because we have a different route we could have taken. All right, straight passage connected. This time, Carl is going face to face with a spiked floor trap. Why is the floor full of holes? Maybe if I peek inside one. Ouch! Why does this keep happening to me? Olga the no-eyed. Oh, it keeps happening to Olga. Declare odd or even 4 times, rolling a d6 after each declaration, and each failure results in a 1d6 attack, totaled and resolved after all 4 attempts. Oh my gosh, here we go. Carl, come on, my friend. You can do this. I have faith in you. But here we go. This is the spiked floor trap in the passageway. Can Carl get past the spiked floor trap? Let's find out. I want to get this so you can at least see the die results. I'm just going to say, he's going to say even on all of them. And I will just roll one at a time. So even on all of these. Odd. Odd. Even. Even. All right. So that is a 2d6 attack. So this is worked out just like a normal combat. So Carl's defense is 2. So these are 2 dice needing 3s or better. And they both do potentially hit. So Carl is now rolling in defense here. Uh-oh, that was not good. Oh no. In defense, Carl rolled a 1 and a 2. The spiked floor got him. And that is going to be 2 more wounds. Carl is up to 5 wounds. All right, well, he's moving on to the next room and then also the next trap. Yes, we finally got a room of some detail. And as you can see, it is the dungeon. And the reason I wanted to finally get to a room that actually had some decor in it is so I can show off this. This is my system of being able to keep all of my various room decor in these various containers. So every single one of these small boxes contains a bunch of dressing pieces, and it is very easy to just dump them out in there, arrange them as you like, and then there we have it. We have a little dungeon. Additionally, each room has some kind of status effect on a roll of a d3. However, again, we're not going to go into all that. Of course, again, Carl would be facing an encounter in each of these rooms, and we're obviously not doing that in this video, but Carl's ready to move on. We ran out of table space, so the next passageway is probably going to come on the table over there. Let's find out what the next passageway is. We have a dead-end passage. Oh my gosh. Well, that actually works out okay, because that means we're going to be backtracking and coming through this door here. So there was a dead end up there. Let's find out what is over here. Simple straight passage. Fantastic. Let's get that added. And another trap. What is it gonna be? Carl, brace yourself. It's an acid pool. It'll chew through even the most finely crafted armor. So this is going to require an armor test, and this is not good. Whoever designed this dungeon did a fantastic job. It was almost impossible to avoid this acid pool that's in this passageway here. Carl basically needs to roll a 1 here, because Carl's defense, his armor value is a 2. He needs to roll below that, which means he needs to roll a 1. And if he fails, if he rolls a 2 or higher, then he reduces his armor value by 1. Of course, you can always remedy that at the blacksmith in town, what have you, but in this instance, I'll just roll his health die. It's within reach. All right, we need a 1. And it was the exact opposite of 1. Carl has just lost 1 point of armor. He is down to armor 1. Oh my gosh. At least he didn't lose any health. But that would definitely hurt him in the combats ahead. So now it's time for Carl, now that he's waded through that acid pool, to move on. All right, this room ended up being the 4-way room, which was kind of interesting. Also, it ended up being the campsite, so some other adventurers must have been through here, and they kind of created a little campsite. But what ended up happening was, whenever you have a situation where you wouldn't be able to continue one way or the other, you simply put a couple of dead-end passages there, and then take a couple of dead-end passage cards, because there's a card for every single piece of this dungeon. So a couple of dead-end passage cards, take those out of the deck, put those passage things there, so they're like closets or small rooms or something. Now, though, it is time to find out what lays in this direction. We have a straight passage. Very well. So we are continuing in this direction. Carl the Careful, brace yourself. It's buzzsaws. I thought it sounded like a horde of bumblebees buzzing nearby. Then I saw Stan no longer had any legs. Willie the Witless. Declare odd or even twice, rolling a d6 after each, and each failure is a wound. So very similar to, what was it? The spiked floor that we saw earlier. Oh my gosh, here we go. The buzzsaw. Carl and buzzsaws have a bad history. Okay, so he's rolling. We're gonna say even again. We're just gonna roll both at the same time. Okay, well, we got by with 1. So that is another wound. So he is now up to 6 wounds. He has 3 HP remaining. Carl, he's trucking along. He made it past the buzzsaws. Let's see what's next. All right, the next room ended up being the library. In the interest of time, I just drew a couple cards. We drew a corner passage. It could not legally be placed going that way, so it just had to be oriented that way. The trap this time is bats. Duck! No, fool! Bats! And again, we got another declare odd or even. This time it's just 1. So as you can see, sometimes it's a lot of dice, sometimes it's just a single die. Sometimes they're attribute tests, sometimes it's just luck of the roll. So we're going to go with even. And we got it. We made it past the bats without any wounds. Let's see what room we enter next. All right, the next room was a straight through room. It ended up being the torture chamber. Some poor fool is locked in a cage. We're obviously headed off the table, so this next passageway is going to come on through that side, we'll say. Obviously, if I didn't have all these cards laid out here and whatnot, you could actually probably shift the whole thing over. But let's just continue on with a T intersection. All right, very interesting. We will grab our T intersection. So this is going to be another example of how this could be oriented. So let's say Carl is entering through here, always the leftmost one, and then we'll rotate it if need be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it will stay just like that. So actually, I may shift that up just a bit. All right, so he's entering this T intersection. Come on, Carl. And we will find out what trap awaits him here. What is it going to be this time, Carl? Hold on. It is a pit trap. Oh my gosh, this is Carl's brother, Carl the Clumsy. Yeah, I've fallen into a pit once or twice. By the third time, you learn to enjoy it. Dexterity test. So he's going to have to roll 3d6 below his combined speed and attack attributes. Oh my gosh. All right, well, let's grab our little pits here. We're going to grab 3d6, head over to the pit T intersection over here. All right, so here we go. All right, so we have a couple pits. We'll just pop in the center here. Can Carl the Careful avoid these, unlike his brother, Carl the Clumsy? Oh my gosh. 3d6. So we're adding together speed and attack. Now, Carl the Careful has a decent speed. He has a speed of 4. His attack attribute is piss poor, though it's a 3. So you combine speed and attack, that's a 7. I don't like our odds here. This could end up being 2 wounds, because we need to roll a 6 or less, because it can't even be equal to. It has to be below. Oh my gosh, of course not. All right, so we rolled an 11. We needed to roll a 6 or less. So, we fell into a pit. It's a sibling thing. Carl the Clumsy and Carl the Careful both have a bad history with pits. All right, Carl headed down this way. It ended up being a corner room and the throne room oriented this way, so we'll just pop it on probably up there or down there somewhere. But it ended up being the throne room. All right, but Carl has dispatched whatever it was that was in the throne room, and now we have to find out what awaits us here. It is a straight passage, of course. So we have one of those. Let's just say it pops back on right about there. And what is in this straight passage? Carl comes face to face with corkscrew blades. Oh my gosh. These are one of the nastier traps in the dungeon. Let's go ahead and put a couple of these hellish mechanical devices in the passageway. Carl, where are you? Carl the Careful. So the corkscrew blades. How do you defend against sharp and whirling death blades of solid metal that never tire and show no mercy? You lose an arm trying, then you return to town for a pint. And that is wise words from Stephen the Single-Handed. So we get a choice here. We can either squeeze through and take 1 auto wound. We can discard an item card to jam the mechanism to pass unscathed, but then the whirling blades of death destroy the item and continue to spin for the next adventure. Or we can attempt to destroy the device, 4d6 below attack attribute. That would be for an adventurer of a much higher level than we are, because we are level 0. Our attack is 3. We would have to roll 3 1s. We'd have to roll 4 1s, and it'd still be a 4, but 1s are always a success. So we'd have to roll 4 1s on 4d6. That isn't happening. We don't have any items because we're piss poor. So I think we're just going to have to squeeze through and take an auto wound. Unfortunately, that does mean Carl the Careful would have been eliminated. He had 8 wounds. He only has a health of 9. Look. He is now drinking a healing potion that'll heal him D3. Nice. We are back to 5. And we are going to sneak through the corkscrew blade. So we take an auto wound to 6. All right. We have squeezed through, taking an auto wound, and now it is time to move on to the next room and the next passage. All right, it ended up being another corner room, a nondescript room, so nothing of particular interest was in this room. I determined that it couldn't be oriented going up that way just with the way we have things. Of course, we could slide things around, but means we'll just head down this way again. This passage is going to be a straight passage. Surprise, surprise. Here we go. However, what is in this straight passage? Carl the Careful is now going up against a falling boulder. A 10-ton block versus a 165-pound man in plate. I know which I'm taking. That's from Winston the Wise. This is a speed test. Roll 1d6 below the speed attribute, but failure means 2 wounds. We have a 50-50 shot here because our speed attribute is a 4, so we need a 3 or less on 1d6. Gosh bless America, Carl. All right, so that means he is back to 8 wounds. Jeez Louise. As he barely snuck by as this huge boulder basically shaved off part of his backside. All right, moving on. All right, we ended up drawing a straight through room, which ended up being the barracks. So we have a couple of bunks there, a nice porta potty right in the center. That'll stink up your dreams. We have a couple of armor mannequins over there, obviously some weapons, table, practice dummy. But now Carl, after dispatching whatever was in the barracks, is headed this way. And we'll just pretend whatever the passageway is heads back up this way, we'll say. All right, so what is this passageway? It is a straight passage. That may be our last straight passage, and in fact it is. So this passage connected there is just going to come straight back up here, we'll say. And what is in this straight passageway? Crushing walls. The old stone walls surrounding you begin to creak. Is it your imagination, or is this passage getting narrower? Folks, it is not Carl's imagination. It is happening. This is a strength test. 2d6 below the attack attribute. Failure is 2 wounds. Carl, oh my gosh. Carl, how do you keep finding yourself in these predicaments? This is getting ridiculous. So we have a couple of walls here. The walls are crushing. Can Carl get through here? Oh my gosh, I don't think so, to be honest, because he has 2d6. He needs double ones, folks. His attack attribute is a 3. And that's definitely not double 1. So that's 2 wounds. That would put him to death. Thankfully, he had another health potion. And obviously, you'd be drinking this prior to your roll. But let's see what he gets. He heals 2. So that means he's at 6. He takes 2 wounds. He's back to 8. Hopefully, he has more healing potions. Carl, you got somewhat crushed. I mean, he's got to be flattened after all this. All right, next room and passage. Never mind. The next room in the deck was the final room, the boss room. And of course, in a linear dungeon, however many rooms you rolled up the dungeon would be, you just stick this at the bottom of the deck. Or if you wanted some mystery about it or certain scenarios, you can shuffle this into like the last 5 or 6 cards of the room deck. So you're not entirely sure when the boss is going to show up. This would be the boss room, though. We would just connect it right here. The only other card in the deck was this dead end room that we had discarded earlier. If that would have been the case, that would have been okay, because we actually did still have another way we could have gone way up there. But either way, neither of these rooms would connect to any more passages. So we are just going to discard those. And in fact, we only have one more passageway that isn't a dead end, because we have 2 more dead end passageways there, and then our big old 4-way intersection we never got to see. So this is, of course, is breaking all the rules, but let's just attach a passageway to our other passageway here and see what Carl finds in this 4-way passage. It is poisonous gas. No, I don't smell anything. The last words of anosmia, the nose. And that's a little joke that I thought was hilarious at the time I made the card. Constitution test. Roll 3d6 below max health points. If we fail, we are infected. So here, out of a grate in the floor, plumes billowing smoke starts filling the passage. What did we need to roll? 3d6 below max health, so we need an 8. We have max health of 9. We need an 8. Oh my gosh, we are rolling really high right now. That's a 13, which means we've just become infected. Oh gosh. But if poisonous gas wasn't enough, the very last and final trap... Flame jets. A burst of flames leaps out of the ground, reigniting the charred corpse of the last unwary traveler to pass by. 4d6 attack against each adventurer. All right. Maybe it's igniting the poison gas. All right, here's a couple of flame jets, as if that passageway wasn't treacherous enough. So this is a 4d6 attack against us. Again, our defense has been reduced to 1, so these flames just need 2s or better to hit us. And it actually rolled a 1, and actually rolled really poorly. Oh my gosh, Carl has a chance here. 2 2s and a 6. So we are rolling in defense, and again, I don't think we explained, but Carl, since he's a warrior, any 6s in attack or defense explode. So we'll see if he rolls any. He does, but he doesn't even need it because the 6 blocks the 6, 2 5s block 2 2s, and that is it. Carl somehow managed, even though he is infected. Infection means at the end of each combat round, when you're in a combat, you roll a d6, and a 1, 2, or 3 is a wound, 4, 5, or 6 is no wound. So in that instance, he would have taken a wound if that was a combat. But that is it. So folks, this ended up being way longer than I thought it was going to be, but I kind of, you know me, I kind of ramble on. But anyways, this was our dungeon to show off all of the different traps that you may encounter in Dicey Depths. So everyone, please give a round of applause to Carl the Careful, who carefully, or attempted to carefully, demonstrate all of the traps. Of course, he's careful. He wouldn't have triggered all of these traps, right, Carl? So he carefully wanted to demonstrate them all for you, so we all have to give him a round of applause. We started here, we moved in this direction, and we found arrow slits. We found bear traps. We moved up and found swinging blades, and then a pool of slime, and then a spiked floor, and then an acid pool, and then a buzzsaw, and then bats, and then a pit trap, and whirling blades of metal death, and a big old stone block, and then crushing walls, poisonous gas, and flame jets. I'm actually not sure which I prefer for the poisonous gas. I have this. I kind of did this myself. It was a transparent cannon plume, actually. So it was an insert that you'd stick into a cannon, and it would be transparent, and you could paint it white or black or whatever, gray, and it would look like the cannonball was firing out. But I stuck it this way. I painted it green, kind of like it, and I wish I would have put a vent on the base. I still could, but to make it look like the gas was flying up through a vent or a grate in the floor. But I also wish I wouldn't have painted it so opaque. And since the piece itself was translucent, if I would have just done more of like a light green wash and kept some of that transparency, I think it would have looked a lot better. But as is, this is what I have. Otherwise, I would use this cotton and kind of fill up the passageway as if it was smoke was filling the thing. I wish I knew a way, and if you have any tips on how I can turn this green or something without completely destroying it. I tried on a cotton, this is just a cotton ball that I, pulled apart, but if I, and I tried with a cotton ball before to turn it green, but it just did not end up working out well. So I either have this to kind of fill a passageway with smoke, or I have this as a poison gas plume coming up out of the ground. Either way. But that is it. that was our Dicey Depths traps. These are the rest of the rooms. As you can see, there's a ton of rooms that you could potentially encounter. So this was our dungeon. Carl the Careful, he made a lot of ground. I mean, he's doing this all by himself. Good Lord. That is it, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it. Please let me know in the comments what some of your favorite traps you've encountered in your favorite role-playing games have been. And